I remember the taxi driver trying to hide from the police. Everybody's like, okay, lying low.
And then I realized, wow, this is actually quite lucrative.
And how did you two connect with each other?
I was working, me and Max, we have full-time jobs.
I would say there's many different ways to get involved.
For example, when you went to New York, you see everybody trying to approach us and talk to us.
50K is what are we looking at?
I was making per day what I was making per month.
Most of Europe was just a little device in Portugal.
Follow your interests.
Now those people are making money. Now I'm gonna go in, so probably it's already too late.
What type of profile of person do you think this is suitable for?
Get out of your couch and start doing things.
This episode of the DePIN Hub podcast is brought to you by, DePIN Hub, and specifically our new Node as a Service platform, Nodi. With Nodi, you can maximize your earnings and minimize the headaches. Leave the burden of managing your node to us and start generating true passive income in DePIN with Nodi. Hello everyone, Daniel from Hotspotty over here. Just kidding. It's Michael, head of growth at Hotspotty, on a very special edition of the DePIN Hub podcast. It's been over 1 year since co-founder Daniel Andrade, sitting over here to my right, has launched the DePIN Hub podcast, interviewing all of the leaders, or at least some of the leaders from DePIN as it's been growing in the past year. I believe we're now up, this will be episode 57, so we're already over a year, and we've decided to do a little throwback and go full circle to tell you the story. This is going to be a special treat about the beginnings of Hotspotty. So to anybody who doesn't know, Hotspotty is the brand behind DePIN Hub, and Hotspotty started out something very different than DePIN Hub. And so I'm also here with Maxime Goossens. Max, how do you say your last name correctly? Goossens, okay. Well, that's not an easy one. So these are the co-founders of DePIN Hub and Hotspotty, and we're about to give you guys a treat as we walk you down memory lane and give you insights into how they started as deployers in the early days, mining Helium, making those sweet, sweet rewards, and building a foundation that's led all the way up to DePIN Hub today, all right? So for any of you guys sitting there at home that are thinking about, hey, maybe I want to get deeper into DePIN, maybe I'm interested in mining, building a deployment business, this should be very interesting for you, and I'm sure there's going to be a bunch of tips and tricks. So play it back, take some notes, enjoy. Well, let me just lead in like this. There's a lot of influencers. Now everybody's talking about KOLs. There's so many KOLs. There's a gazillion KOLs. Every time I turn on YouTube, there's a new KOL telling you how to get rich and what's cool in crypto, da-da-da-da-da. The fact of the matter is most of these KOLs, half of them are 18 years old. They haven't walked the walk. They're probably not really mining. They're probably getting paid on deals on the side to promote these projects. You need to find people who actually have done what they talk about doing. And so I'm honored to be here with Max and Daniel because they have literally walked the walk. They invested all their savings into it. They spent years of their life into it. They were literally crawling up and down around roofs and pipes and stuff, running around during COVID, including at my house, because I was one of those early hosts. And it was so appealing, even to me, that it got me all the way back into crypto when I had lost interest. And I eventually quit my job and I actually joined Hotspotty. And now I work for Max and Daniel. So it's pretty compelling what they're doing. So I'm pretty excited. I hope you guys are excited. Without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Hotspotty / DePIN Hub co-founders Max and Daniel. Let's see, which way do we go? We'll start with you, Max. Can you introduce yourself briefly for the audience?
Yeah, so I'm an engineer from Belgium. Also love the hustle, building stuff, building really cool products that people actually use, and scaling it to a level where many other people can do a job that previously would be very difficult to do, but my tech actually allows them to do it. Very passionate. On the side, always learning new stuff, experimenting with new technologies, etc., which is also what we're going to talk about today.
Awesome. And now let's hand it over to you, Daniel. A little self-intro. I'm sure everyone's familiar with you because you're Mr. KOL, but maybe they don't really know the real Daniel.
Yeah, I mean, KOL, I take it most of the time as an LOL. That's why my girlfriend calls me. So Daniel, I am also one of the co-founders of Hotspotty and DePIN Hub. If you've been listening to the podcast, I did 56 episodes so far of the podcast, so it's been very, very interesting. I'm a hardware and software engineer from south of Brazil. Now both me and Max living here in Lisbon, Portugal. Super excited about crypto, but also DePIN specifically because it actually combines my passion with engineering, hardware manufacturing, fulfillment, and blockchain and crypto. So DePIN is super exciting, something that I talk about every day, 7 days a week. And yeah, fucking let's go.
Boom, there we go. All right, so DePIN is everything Daniel wants and more out of life.
Don't tell my girlfriend.
Yes, and well, but besides his girlfriend, lovely girlfriend. Okay, so let's jump into it. So we're sitting here back in the studio. If you guys watched a few months ago, we haven't been here since I think the DePIN Revolution event, which was a wild time. That was a very busy time.
Last summer, yeah.
Yeah, so we're finally back here. So celebrating, I guess, in a way, in the cold winter nights of Lisbon, Portugal. Relatively cold. It's not very cold for you Northern Europeans and stuff. But yeah, let's jump into the story. So okay, we're in Lisbon. I believe the story started in Lisbon. Yes. So can you guys give a little bit of like, what's the setting? What's the time period? Where were we? And how did you discover? So first of all, what was the project? And maybe some people don't know what the project was that you started mining. So what was the time? How did you discover this project? And how did you two connect with each other?
Sure. So actually the story starts before Helium. I would say 2019, I got interested in Bitcoin. At the time, there was actually not a lot of other crypto talk around there because it was the proper bear market essentially. So the only thing really relevant was Bitcoin, and my thought was, can I mine this? Because that's what a lot of people are actually doing. I was doing my research, and like ultimately it was not really a good idea to do it unless you had access to cheap energy, which I did not have living in Belgium at the time. So then I was thinking like, okay, how can I do it differently? And there are some ways, like I was studying, okay, where is the energy very, very cheap? Are there ways to like maybe set up some mining rigs over there, etc. As part of the research, I encountered some like essentially a cloud mining solution that were saying, hey, we can do all the setup. We all you have to do is basically like put your money in, buy some subscriptions of this hardware, like of the actual miners, and then ultimately you will get returns out of that, right? So a very compelling offering. The price was affordable. It was supposed to be like Ukraine. So I started like dipping my toes into it. It worked. Like I was withdrawing the Bitcoins, and then I realized, wow, this is actually quite lucrative. I started like deploying more and more capital into it, but ultimately it ended up like collapsing as a Ponzi scheme. So it was a scam. It was not too good to be true. I kind of knew that, right? But ultimately I learned a lot from it, and that to me was already like a really interesting starting point to learn about crypto. But I didn't want to really proceed in crypto because it was too kind of dangerous, and I just got a reality check out of that. However, it kind of set the stage of my interest, and I kept like following up the markets, right? So 1 year later, I discovered an article like in my just newsfeed essentially talking about Helium, what it is. Like it's a decentralized telecom where communities can actually contribute to building out infrastructure, and it's this company in the US that essentially leverages like the cryptocurrency and the blockchain as kind of a transparent way of coordinating things and community, all to actually solve a problem worth solving. And I thought it was a really compelling offering, and I really wanted to learn more about it. And my thinking was, okay, if I'm going to jump into another thing, I really want to know that it's like substantial, that it's not another Ponzi scheme. So I started really digging into it. I ended up like talking about it to a friend, which then in turn introduced me to another friend who's now here, like Daniel, right, who knows a lot about IoT. And ultimately, we were really, really fascinated by it because everything they did was transparent. Everything was on chain, like the entire blockchain. The data was available to us. We could see what's going on. Like basically, it was kind of a dream. A dream project. And also the community was like on Slack, and we could like just chat with the founders, with everyone involved. But it was only in the US at the time. So then I decided to buy 2 devices just to test if it actually works. So we bought 2. The moment it would arrive, we would just install it and start testing out if this thing actually worked, if it was not like some vaporware thing. yeah, I guess that's how we learn about Helium.
When I learned about this project, I had a little light bulb moment because I already was playing with IoT, decentralized IoT. Sorry, I was already playing with community-owned IoT networks when I was living in Berlin before coming to Portugal with a project called the Things Network. And luckily, I already have all the hardware at home, the Raspberry Pi, the LoRa concentrator. I already knew how to build these things because I've done it in the past. So when Max told me about Helium, I was immediately, okay, I understand this project is going to destroy everything that's around because people have been building community-owned networks in the past, but they earn kudos. They earn tap in the back because it's people like building communities basically. But what if you have that plus you make some money, right? That's that's the really cool time. To the point that me and Max was start using Slack, and then they moved to Discord. It was a small community. It was amazing. We spent all the time, I was working. Me and Max, we have full-time jobs, but on the weekends, at night, we're spending time learning more and more. To the point that I was able to get we call Swarm Key, which is the key for your device to become a real device on the network. So I built this very simple Raspberry Pi with a small antenna, and then I built a device that you press a button, it sends a message to the network, and if my Raspberry Pi picks up that signal, I can see on the internet. So it was a crazy person with a bunch of a hardware with a bunch of wires, me with my phone in the other hand, walking around the neighborhood, pressing a button, seeing on my phone if the message arrived to the internet.
Sounds like you are today still.
Yeah, didn't change much, I guess. But that was I think that was the first time, right? We were okay, this project exists. It was making a little bit of tokens. The tokens were cents, 30 cents, 20 cents, I don't remember. But we also didn't expect to make money out of this. We're okay, this is really cool. Maybe we can make some passive income, $100 at the end of the month can be beer money. It's COVID times. Everyone's stuck at home anyway. And we're this is super, super exciting. To the point that I remember one thing that was really cool. It was 3 guys, right? Me, Max, and Alex at the time. Before they start shipping out the devices that Max bought, there was a giveaway. And me, Max, and Alex, each one got one. So that was super, super lucky. I mean,
just randomly, all 3 of you.
Randomly. They were giving because Helium is actually starting to expand to Europe. So they give this giveaway. So we deployed the devices and we're making, I don't remember, 100, 200 tokens a day. At the time, it was we're not that much money, but it's still super exciting. And then I think Max bought 2, but then we decided to, I don't remember what was the story.
Yeah, we actually asked for a refund for 1 out of the 2. Because we could actually get 3 swarm keys. So the idea was for the $500 of one, we could actually get at least the 3 in form of Raspberry Pi and all the ground components and the swarm key. So we would get for the same money, basically, the 3 hotspots.
Yeah, I remember that because they had the DIY program, the do-it-yourself program that you could build your own device, like I did in the beginning, right? But the thing is, there was some scammers, some people that they blocked this project. But we bought a lot of hardware. I was building the whole infrastructure to manage those devices because you have something like miners in the cloud, etc. But then we have a bunch of Draginos, which is this is a LoRa device. But after at this time we're learning a lot, talking to people, getting to know actually the Helium team, that now is the Nova Labs team, and yeah, it was a pretty cool time to the point that we bought 20 devices and then we bought more, right?
And we spent a lot of time really understanding the tech, right? It was not just, how can we squeeze money out of this thing? We all viewed it more as a hobby, in learning stuff. I had no idea about IoT. I'm an engineer by background, but never really fiddled around with it. So we were trying to understand these antennas, how do they work? Can we get better antennas? What's the loss in the cable? How do you install it in a watertight box? All of these things, So it was a lot of cross-pollination. I knew a lot about certain things. Daniel knew a lot about other things. And we were learning from each other, sharing those learnings as well. Daniel made a video about how to set up a DIY miner, which then in turn was a very niche video, right? What we're doing with DePIN Hub. But the few that actually watched the video and followed the instructions are still around. They're still in the DePIN ecosystem. Just a simple video can do that by sharing your learnings, right?
Go, the snowball became an avalanche. You guys lit the fire. Yeah, I mean, so the first helium hotspot out of Europe was set up in your home?
So I think at the time there was, I think, one in England or a couple in England because they have the team that work at Helium there. But if you look at the map between, Germany, Portugal, France, Italy, most of Europe was just a little device in Portugal, in Lisbon, in Alcântara, right? But yeah, it was such a cool time. Even the app was very different than it's today. You could see so the way it works, for you to know, Helium started with something called proof of coverage, which is how do I prove that my message that I'm trying to send to Max's device work? So the way that they do that, they have let's say a phrase, they split that in two. Half of the phrase goes over the internet, so 100% that device is going to receive. The other half goes through the air. So if Max's antenna receive both messages, and I can put them together and becomes a beautiful sentence, that means that they received. So proof of coverage, right? And me and Max, we had a mountain between each other. So at one point we could see okay, sometimes the message that goes through, sometimes not. We can tweak around with that. It was such a cool time to just try to understand all the physics and there's software around it. Max did a really good job reverse engineering the whole blockchain software. We spent a lot of time around Helium, I'd say.
Yeah, I remember this time myself because I was seeing you guys a lot, right? Because I was also in Lisbon. And I would bump into Max and Daniel at co-working spaces and stuff. And every time I saw them, it was insane the velocity that they were building at. It was Max would come up to me all excited, be like, "Look, we just have this new visualization feature. We have this new thing," and I'd be like, "What? Wow!" And I couldn't believe it. It was enterprise grade software that you would expect to see out of like Ericsson or Nokia or something. And I was like, "You just built that?" And it was every couple of weeks there was some new thing. So it was quite exciting. I remember I was very impressed. So I was also feeling the energy even from a distance. So it sounds like, if I'm getting this right, it started out more as a passion project, as a hobby. It was like tricking your interest a little bit, but it did seem like, Max, that you were kind of comparing it to what you initially got into with mining Bitcoin. So you did see the potential for financial upside, or was that not even relevant?
No, it was relevant because at the time, I always wanted to have, a business and something that can scale without scaling my time per se, or that can scale disproportionate to my time. So that was always something I wanted to build. I attempted to build in the past. A lot of these things didn't really work out, but that's fine. You learn from it. And in a way, at the time, I was actually, I finished one other project, and then I ended up freelance programming. So I have a background in software development. And that's a type of thing where it's directly proportionate to your time, the amount of money you make, right? So, and at some point you're working for someone else and you're not that passionate about what they're building, but you still have to build it, and it's directly correlated with your time. To me, it's a super compelling offering, a way to basically invest your time and energy in setting up, let's say, a mining operation that starts small, but once you really know how it works, you can then double down and really scale it. And that actually happened in this case. I remember very clearly, and we were going to talk about it later on, but I had this point where in Helium, I was making per day what I was making per month 1 year before that point. And completely passively, right? I could just sit in my couch the whole day and would still be the same thing. And that's very powerful.
It's amazing.
It was a lot of work, climbing roofs, because we I remember we did a lot of installments. I think over 100, and then it was I remember building the stuffy bags full of components. Everything needs to be ready because we need to. When you're on the roof, we don't want to be thinking and fiddling around, right? We just want to be ready to go. So I spent a lot of time getting the cables, get everything ready. It was cool because it was COVID times, like I was saying. So a lot of times, I remember the taxi driver trying to hide from the police. Everybody's okay, lying low. Get someone's home. Straight, everybody knew what they need to do. And then Max is the Spider-Man. He jumps on the roof. I start drilling something, pulling cables and doing the connectors, etc. That was a really, really cool time to build this. And yeah, I mean, the first version of Hotspotty was just a Telegram bot. Not even bot, just a Telegram script that every day we put, we have 3 miners or 5 miners or whatever. And then every day just tell how much rewards, what's the percentage, etc. Like just so you can understand what's happening, right? And then the second version was like a very simple version that I did like on the weekends called Hotspotty, hotspotmanager.xyz, which is like the beginning of Hotspot. Right? There was no visualization, there was no map. It was just like a place that you can calculate the rewards and can help pay people at the end of the month, because that's a problem that we had. Once we had, let's say you have to pay 100 people per month, and you need to check the information. Okay, this device, how much it generated from this day to the other day, how much it generated, what's the percentage that person was supposed to be paid. Sometimes there's referral fees, etc. All the calculation takes a long time. So the first version is like a way to easily to optimize that. And then it was taking, let's say, a few hours a day for once a week, to the point that once we built Hotspotty, it was just like scanning a QR code, doing this in 30 seconds, you pay like 1,000 people.
Yeah, I remember like once I started, working at Hotspotty for you guys, like you brought me to an event. I think maybe it was Helium House or something. It was the first event I went to. Yeah, and the amount of people were like, oh my God, you saved me so much time. I just scanned this code and everyone just paid. It's amazing. It was like I was walking around with them and it was like, wow, everyone knows you guys. It's like you're like legends. Like I wasn't sure if they were BSing me before. And then I started traveling with them and I was like, okay, people really do appreciate the software. So clearly it was saving people a lot of time. But I wanted to like dig into that a little bit deeper and maybe back it up a bit, just in case some of the people watching aren't like, maybe you're familiar with DePIN Hub, but not that familiar with the original Hotspotty app and Helium and stuff. Like, why did you even get to this point where you needed to start, having these features and managing these hosts? Like, where did these hosts come from? Like, can you tell me a little bit about the evolution from like, Max finds you guys decide to like buy 2 miners, you start realizing that, whoa, this is starting to make me money. Like, how did that then begin to scale up with all of these other hosts? Like, what was that journey?
Yeah, I guess it's even before that, right? Like, why did we buy like all these hotspots in the first place? And the whole idea was like at that time we already had 6 or 8 or something like that, right? The OG hotspots and the ones we won, and then the DIYs, like all combined. So at that point we were months in our journey and we really understood the tech. We really like had our own internal tools to kind of optimize where to place them and all of that. And we were aware of some other like company in the US that all they did was they had a shit ton of hotspots. They're basically like part of the main investors of Helium, gave that kind of pet project to his son, like, here, spread the word of this thing, right? And ultimately they just collected addresses online, like, hey, do you want passive income? Just give your address and we'll ship you a box. And so that, was shipped to me, to Daniel. And so these guys were printing money basically, but super inefficiently because people were not really like properly installing it. They were just putting it on their window. Why? Because they were only getting like a small percentage of the rewards, and they were like, basically like it had a very bad rep because everyone wanted to like kind of buy these hotspots, but these guys had a preferential treatment because they got a bigger batch earlier or whatever, right? So the model of like hosting someone else's hotspot was familiar to us, and we were just thinking like we can do the same thing but just better, like really professionally install. We wanted to, like, nobody really know about it in Lisbon at the time, so we were thinking we can just like build our entire network and make sure the coverage of Helium is like impeccable, because we're gonna do the best installation jobs ever. Like, we're gonna put all of them on rooftops. We're gonna find people who have access to these places. We're gonna assess them, and then have like a whole operation going essentially, and then get our investment back, because it was not a small investment at the time, especially like for us. We were just like normal people, right?
Yeah. Can you share a little bit of, like, I mean, it's up to you, but like what, or at least maybe as a percentage of like what you were earning, like what kind of investment are we talking about here? Like, is this like $100? Is this 50K? Is this, what are we looking at?
I think it was like between us three, we put like, I think 21K or something. I don't remember, but it was something around that. But still, like,
it's a sizable.
Yeah, it's like the savings basically, right?
Yeah, for something that started out as just kind of a hobby. Yeah, it's a big investment.
Yeah, it's a lot. Like, it's that, plus I also bought in for Belgium. So I had like the thing we're doing here in Lisbon, and then I did kind of the same thing in Belgium with like another friend of mine. But ultimately, like, it was a lot of money, and like for me, like being a software engineer working per hour, it would be a lot of hours of working to actually make the same money back. So it was a serious bet for us, but we didn't do it like out of thin air, right? Like we actually had months of preparation. It was a bet on this project, of course, but what we saw was there was a new batch being sold in the US, and it sold out in a heartbeat, in no time. And then I realized, okay, the next batch is going to be Europe. We just need to get our hands on this thing because this thing is really flying. At the time when we started, there were like 3,000 hotspots worldwide. The time we actually purchased ours, there were already like 15,000 or something. So it was already like scaling exponentially in the US. And the thesis was it's going to essentially trickle down in other places. And in the end, it was COVID. So what else are you going to do, right?
Yeah. And the thing also for Helium tokenomics is that there's, let's say, a specific amount of tokens every month being distributed by the network. So if there is like one device, that device getting all the tokens. So the more and more devices come into the network, that means less reward, right? I mean, the tokenomics, the idea is that the more devices go, you get less, but then the token goes up. But anyway, we weren't thinking about that. Because, yeah, I remember like when Max was like, okay, now is the time they just open the sale to Europe. I was like coming back from a coffee shop that I used to own home, which is like, like 15-minute walk. I was just like, okay, let's go. Trying to buy buying the device from my phone because everything's going to sold out. I think like there was some credit card that didn't work out. And like, okay, I'm going to get my dad's credit card. I'm going to pay him back. We're just like YOLO mode. But it was very, very exciting. And then, yeah, was so stressful because this device then actually took a long time to arrive. And then when they arrived, they got stuck in customs for like, 2 weeks in Portugal. And we were like, looking at the charts, looking at the numbers, like, okay, 2 weeks.
Was it so stressful?
Yeah, I mean, every day I was like calling the people and then they just like incompetent, like DHL.
It was a race, right? Like even the moment you get them, they're like, 60 boxes. You can't install them all in one day. You need to really prepare for this. Yeah. You need to get consent from people that have no idea what you're talking about. Like, it was not really an easy sell, to be honest. Like they had crypto, it's going to steal my data, this and that. Like at the time, it wasn't going to really pay them a lot. We were like,
Yeah, exactly. I think the token was trading as like, I remember when it was listed in Binance, it reached $3 and then went down. So I think it was around, $2 a dollar. Yeah. I'm going to put in this, if you're watching this, I'm going to put the picture of my room that I had, because the way it was in the beginning is like you buy the device and you attach to the internet. You need to synchronize with the blockchain. So the device was really interesting in the beginning because each Helium device was running the full blockchain inside of the device itself. And I remember I have a picture that I'm going to put here. Like I think it was like 20 devices all connected at the same time, trying to sync the device before actually we put them on someone's home. Because if you do that, then we have to wait like for days as well for that thing to sync. So yeah, it was very stressful, very exciting time. We were all in. It was like, and the best thing was like COVID times. People were just stuck at home. So many people had like being bored at home, starting to paint, starting to do, knitting or something. And we're like all in, climbing roofs, pulling cables. It's been I don't have besides of course the calamities that happened during COVID, I have good memories out of that, right? Because that was the only one time that we were able to do this. If it didn't happen, probably we wouldn't be here.
Timing is important, right? Paying attention to what's going on in the market. I mean, Max always has working with Max is very analytical, but always has a vision for sort of like trends, what's ahead, what people are interested in, what's going on. I think for everybody listening at home, like if you have that eye and you're kind of paying attention to macro conditions, what's being discussed on socials, and you're a little bit forward thinking and you take that risk at the right time, I mean, the proof is in the pudding, right? Like if you're coming 4 years later and you're like, oh yeah, I think helium's cool, like, yeah, it is cool, but the rewards you're going to see are nothing like what you would have seen 4 or 5 years ago if you jumped in.
I mean, one thing that definitely happened to prove this point, that most people, they take too long to start acting on things, right? Because what happened is that we started deploying some people's homes. Some people are like, okay, actually, the price of tokens start going up. And some people are like, okay, actually, I'm going to buy my own device. I'm going to start deploying as well. But the problem is like the Helium got so popular. There was the fulfillment issues around the world with chip manufacturers who couldn't build the devices. So people were seeing like after the price started going up, when they actually saw, okay, actually Max is making some money, I'm going to buy 10 devices right now. That was, I don't know, March. Those people received those devices in like October, November, December, when there was like a halving, there's a lot of things. So you definitely needed to be a bit crazy to do this. You know, it's like you're betting on something because if you only see when things are happening to start, you're too late, right? Being early means opportunity.
Being early means opportunity. Yes. Watch the DePIN Revolution promo video where I say that, and then Daniel has been mocking me for saying that for a long time, but it's true.
It's
right?
awesome.
It's very
I like
true.
it. Yeah, definitely.
It's time to start making your money work as hard as you do. Luckily, there's an amazing new opportunity going on right now in DePIN. You might have heard of it. It's called node sales, or initial node offerings. So by running nodes, you actually help secure and take part in the underlying blockchain infrastructure that's powering these DePIN projects, and you earn rewards for doing so. And you might think, hey, this sounds pretty cool, but look, I'm not a DevOps engineer. I don't know how, nor have the time to be thinking about server configurations and managing my uptime and all this technical stuff. I guess this opportunity isn't for me. Well, we come with good news, because with our new solution at DePIN Hub, our Node as a Service platform, Nodi, we are going to remove all of that technical burden for you. You can now outsource your node management fully to us, and in turn, maximize your uptime and maximize your earnings while minimizing the headaches. So if that sounds cool to you, check out deepinhub.io/nodes to learn more about Nodi. You can leave your email. We'll keep you updated on upcoming node sales, as well as how to claim them and delegate those nodes to Nodi to start optimizing your rewards. And guess what? We're giving away to the first 500 people that sign up by leaving their email address on our Nodi page 1 free year of our Nodi service for one node. So that's pretty big savings in aggregate. That's like $100,000 we're going to be giving away. So don't wait. Check out Nodi again, deepinhub.io/nodes. And by the way, if you haven't yet, there is an ongoing node sale right now with Impossible Cloud Network. Super cool project. They're taking on the likes of AWS and Google Cloud with a decentralized offering. You can go to node.icn.global to purchase your nodes directly there, and you can use our promo code DePINHub, just one word, DePINHub, to get 20% off those nodes until December 22nd. So don't wait. Time waits for no one. It pays to be early. Stop letting inflation eat away those savings. Check out ICN's node sale and check out DePIN Hub Nodi and start making your nodes work for you as passive income generating machines.
So it pays to be early, ladies and gentlemen. Be early. Okay, so we've gone into a lot of detail kind of about how the origin story, I guess you could say, of Hotspotty. Let's go into a little bit more of some of the details around the successes and the challenges. And I want to talk about this not just so that you guys can understand more about their story, but also so that you can take out some learnings from this and potentially apply it to new opportunities that exist in the current DePIN ecosystem. So first, if we look at the successes, like what was the eventual scale you were able to reach in terms of like hotspots installed, rewards you earned, or dollar euros you made? Like, can you give the audience an idea of the scale?
Yeah, it's a lot. But the thing is, like, it's not that straightforward. So if you look at the calculation, like how many tokens did we earn altogether from start to end, and then you look at the chart of the price of the token, and you take like the entire amount and multiply it by the top, like as if you're managing to time the top. Yeah, it was a lot of money. Like, I mean, yeah, I don't know if it makes sense to say, but it was quite, was quite
Lambos
crazy.
For you, Lambo for you.
No, it was crazy, but like, I mean, maybe a smaller scale, I could say like one hotspot at some point was just making the equivalent of me full-time coding as a software engineer, and we had 100, right? So it's a lot of money, but again, that's a snippet, like a point in time, and that point in time didn't really last long. And at the same time, we also invested not only our time but money and all of that. We started building like tooling, like software for other people to kind of benefit from our internal tooling as well. So we were full on reinvesting mode because we really believe this thing is here to stay. We didn't really consider it's going to collapse with the rest of the market, right? We didn't understand this at the time. So we were just like reinvesting everything we had, and we were essentially paying people with these mining rewards, no matter what the price was at the time, right? So the whole thing was definitely worth it because we managed to bootstrap our entire company and like have 12 people working full time on this thing and build something really like lasting. Like 300,000 people actually used the tool, and we're very grateful for it. We saved a lot of hours of like time for many people. Yeah. So in that sense, like it's been a massive success, and we're very, very grateful. In terms of like financial reward, yeah, as well, but not many millions or whatever you could theoretically calculate, because in the reality it's never like that, you know.
But I think it's cool, right? Just the fact that we were like having a team building a product without having to actually fundraise, but actually taking the mining rewards from those devices that we deployed to actually pay people's salaries. It was very rewarding. Also,
literally and figuratively, very rewarding.
Yeah, exactly. But also was very, very cool. The amount of things that I learned the past 4 years, it's been ridiculous, right? In so many areas, like building a company, and then after a couple of years, like some fundraising. But we would like to keep on the idea of, okay, let's continue building, trying to be bootstrap owner of our own future in a way, right? I think that's pretty interesting. Yeah, it was super exciting. Also, the feedback that we always get, like, for example, when you went to New York, you see everybody trying to approach us and talk to us, is because we have really good product market fit that everybody was using. The Max said we had 300,000 users. We're managing around 400,000 Helium hotspots, which is like 40% of the whole ever deployed devices. We got to know a lot of people. Helium, they were like we call it the OGs, the grandfathers of Decentralized Infrastructure projects. There was some that came before, but the Helium actually one that, you know, put wood in the fire. And we were very, very tight, not working for them. A lot of times people think that we're building for them or with them or they own us.
We still get emails saying, listen here, Helium, I need you to do this for us. It's quite funny, actually.
But the cool thing is that was the beginning of something very, very changing, like world changing, I guess, right? Like this. Yeah. We're still early.
Yes, we are still early, so it's fortunate. We're all still early. Maybe not for the initial helium mining opportunity, but still early for everything that it's ushered in and sort of the next wave. So another thing I wanted to touch on is because there was this transition from you guys essentially being the deployers to building like enablement tooling, like a platform for everybody else that wanted to be deployers. And my understanding of that kind of transition is because you guys yourselves were encountering a lot of challenges and like just all kinds of issues that everybody else was also encountering and struggling with. And I think, you know, maybe that's a good indicator of some of the potential challenges you might come across trying to build a deployment business and, you know, managing nodes and things like that. Can you elaborate a little bit on like what are some of the difficulties that people might face if they're trying to essentially mimic your journey?
At the time, we were actively we actually deployed our entire fleet, and then we were like, okay, now it's about maintaining these rewards so that we can break even and then like make this a profitable endeavor. And then I started really digging into the source code of Helium and the tokenomics. Like back then they didn't really call it tokenomics, but ultimately it's what defines the rewards, like what actually makes your miner mine more tokens than the one next to you, essentially, right? So, and this was very theoretical, like there was a lot of logic behind it, and but with the data you could actually calculate and kind of simulate the state of the network and how the rewards would flow. And my realization after doing visualization of this data and all of that, because all the data was available, it's on chain. The only thing is like to query the blockchain at the time, Helium was its own layer one. Like Solana didn't even exist at the time. So essentially it required a lot of like DevOps and a lot of know-how on that front, which Daniel actually has. So he was the one like running the entire blockchain like infrastructure as the very few people who actually managed to do that. So because of that, I had access to a database and I could query all this data and like do all these crazy visualizations. And I came to one conclusion, which is you get rewarded based on the environment you're in and how much value you provide to that environment and vice versa. So in a way, we couldn't really control that environment because it's a permissionless network where just random people could show up and install a hotspot and contribute to the network, but in reality, not really, because they're like, I'm already covering this area, right? We already fully covered like Lisbon, like with proper redundancy. We couldn't possibly like stop them from coming, but they were actually not helping the network because there was a full redundant coverage already. So in a way, like we couldn't really optimize anymore, but what we could do was educate others to come to that conclusion and install it elsewhere where actually they would provide value and therefore they would be rewarded, because you only get rewarded in proportion to the value you provide. But to calculate that, it's very, very difficult. And so we started building this whole like simulation tool. There was another team that started deploying in Lisbon around the same time. And we were essentially like collaborating with each other using my tools or our tools to keep maintaining like the perfect distribution in Lisbon, right? And they would literally like pull their hotspots out of the city center, put it in remote areas, so that we could all collectively kind of work together. And then this like swarm of people came and basically like put the map in a completely unmanageable state. But the idea was that this would never have happened if they had the right tooling to calculate for themselves where to actually position it. And this is why we really decided we're going to open source all our code, or like not really our code, but like our platform needs to be accessible for everyone, because it was not just Helium deployment here in Lisbon, it was across the entire world. Everyone was trying to do the same thing. And a lot of people were very, very involved in this, but not many people could actually like do these calculations, because theoretically it was very complex. To really calculate it, you need to have access to the data, which almost nobody had. Like, it was just not really accessible. And at the same time, me and Daniel, that's our bread and butter, like building tooling, complex tooling to make a complex task simple for other people. So yeah, that's the kind of the start of Helium, is planning where you need to put your hotspots, but at the same time also allowing large-scale deployments where we had a full-blown CRM system where you could bring in leads, like, okay, you have an access to the roof. Are you okay with like deploying on your location? Cool. You add address to the system, like you start coordinating large-scale deployment. We even had a customer that had essentially thousands of hotspots, and they had one guy full-time. His job was using our tool, like Hotspotty, to manage their operations. So.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, we made waves, right? I think that was really cool. And yes, the idea of like not everyone can do what we build, right? Because it was very technical in so many levels. Like Max reverse engineering the Erlang code to understand a proof of coverage algorithm. Me running the blockchain I was running the blockchain for the Helium Foundation. I think I was one of the few people that actually managed to sync the blockchain from block 1. I remember at the time was early. It took, I think, a few months to the point that my seed was the beginning. Everyone who wanted to run the blockchain for their own, they had to download it from like my start. So it's like it was crazy times to the point that you couldn't do it anymore. Like it would take longer to sync than it was generating the blocks, because the blockchain was very, very inefficient the way that was designed. It took a lot of processing to get to calculate things. So yeah, it was very challenging to have like really beefy servers to manage to hold everything. But it was fun.
But it was fun.
It was cool. I could not take a shower while I was not thinking about how to solve some problem with the blockchain, right?
Dreaming of blocks.
Yeah, efficiencies and performance. I learned so much. It was super exciting.
Yeah, so this is one of the things I think is really interesting is that because you guys were so holistic in your involvement, meaning that from like having to order and receive the hardware to finding these hosts to climbing on the roofs, but also to actually run the blockchain, to run backups with the blockchain, to be able to then analyze and visualize the data and try to figure out how to optimize the network. Like it was like every corner of Helium you were touching in some way. You were kind of involved in everything. And I think like that gives the team now and DePIN Hub now a very holistic overview of all of DePIN, of kind of like you're able to assess projects from many different angles, from the point of view of the deployer, from the point of view of the retail consumer that's looking to make some extra money, to the project itself, and like all of the different challenges you can have. So I think that's great because it informs kind of DePIN Hub now and helps people on their new journey. So it's sort of like the next Helium or whatever it is that maybe you're kind of researching at home. About like that part, research and staying up on all of the project updates. Like, can you tell me a little bit about that? Because I know Helium was changing things a lot. Obviously, they transitioned to Solana at some point. There's these Helium improvement proposals. Like, how are you guys staying up with all of the data and all of the changes and stuff? Or was that even a challenge? Was that an issue?
I mean, I think during the Helium times, we're just so involved with one project that I wouldn't say is easier, but like you spend 2 years 24/7 looking at one project, following up. You get to know the people, you get to know the dramas, the shenanigans, the goals, everything that's happening. You kind of like assimilate, right? But I think the main issue is like when new interesting projects start popping up, and then you can't do this for more than one project by yourself alone. And that's actually when we started. Okay, DePIN, they didn't even have this name before. Like, just for those who are listening, at the time, the Helium has the Helium Inc., which is the company who was building the code, and they had a foundation, which was called DY, Decentralized Wireless. And then they changed for Helium, became Nova Labs, which is taking care of the Helium Mobile, the for-profit, and DY became Helium Foundation, that's not like NGO. The NGO or just like non-profit organization, the foundation, whatever, that doesn't matter. And then came, Hive Mapper, came Demo, came so many other projects that we started dipping our toes on. But it was like, okay, it's quite hard for us to really go as deep as we did with Helium. And that was the initial plan, right? Okay, let's build the same level of detail that we did for Helium, let's do it for Hive Mapper or Demo. And realized that it wasn't really wasn't really worth our time, basically, to go so deep in one project while there are so many other projects coming up, right? I think that's when our journey of DePIN Hub.
Sort of the genesis of DePIN Hub.
Which had a different name, right? Which one was it?
We had many things. DePIN DD.
Oh, DY Llama.
Oh yeah, DY Llama. I still like DY Llama.
Funny, I was checking today, actually. DYLlama.com has a lot of views every day for some reason.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know.
Obviously, staying up on project details is very important. You guys proved that firsthand, but hopefully a lot of the heavy lifting has been at least slightly, or at least that mountain of research has been cut down to a bearable hill now through things like DePIN Hub, where you can find all of this at least in one place and have all the links and stay up to date on news and things like that. So I will say, like, listening here, it sounds complex. It sounds really hard, like what you guys did, your journey. You need to be super technical. You have to take huge risks. You have to stay up on things all the time. But for new opportunities that are in the space, like, do you agree with that? Or what type of profile of person do you think this is suitable for? Like, is it super hard? You have to be super technical, or like, who's the ideal profile to like be you guys in the modern world?
I would say like there's many different ways to get involved. You don't need to be as involved as we were in Helium. Like, you can just buy the token if you really believe in it. You can just like hang out in the community and like get value out of it from that. You can mine like by actually doing what we did, like installing the hotspots and like really maintaining it and all of that. You can do that at scale. But you can also be a host, right? Like hosting someone else's miner and not taking any financial risk and just getting some upside and learning something along the way, which is what you did, right? We installed in your house.
It was truly passive income, except for the every now and then when like something got messed up by me or somebody else. But yeah, it was like, Michael, unplug this plug. And it was like, oh, I'm making money again. It was like, oh, I'm so exhausted. 1 month I had to go over there and unplug the plug. Jesus.
Yeah. And then there's node sales that you can run as well. And that's truly passive as well. It's a financial investment, but you can still actually be part of it and get the financial upside. So there's just many, many different ways to be involved. What I would say is like, don't spread yourself too thin. Like if your involvement is as a miner, you can't really productively mine 10 different projects at scale, because these are like very fast moving ecosystems. You will get miss an update or whatever, and then like be at the back of the line or be slashed or whatever. It's too much information to really like be on top of. Maybe as a hobbyist, like, having one miner of every project makes sense, because then like maybe one of them you get really amazed, and then that informs your decision to like double down on that project and really evolve with it. What I would also say is that contrary to like buying stocks or anything like that, here you do actually matter. Like you actually can make a difference. Like me and Daniel, we actually did make a difference in Helium. Like we enabled that hosting model and streamlined the entire process, and therefore many more people bought many more hotspots, because now they could seemingly like manage the entire thing and deploy, and therefore the network grew much more, and therefore like they are where they are right now, like not 100% because of us, but like we definitely contributed, right? And anyone can contribute to some capacity, like just merely hanging out in Discord with bring good vibes, making some like images, memes, or a little video on YouTube, or just telling your friends about it. These are like seemingly not so meaningful contributions, but they are compounded with a large community size, right? So it all matters. And if you, like in the beginning, you have some sort of financial upside because you bought a node or some tokens, like eventually this all compounds and this will give you the returns. Don't just have your expectations too high, enjoy the process as well.
Get out of your couch and start doing things. Because another thing that I see with a lot of my friends, they talk about investing, about like the time of like when we were in deploying Helium, etc. Right? So I mean, like, oh, it's so cool. I'm gonna buy some device. I'm gonna deploy. They're still talking about the same thing. 4 years ago, they've been saying like, yeah, I'm gonna start. So the best thing to do is like, what I say, the best time to invest was yesterday. The second best is today. So get out of your couch and let's start building this network.
Start building this network. Boom. Okay. Well, I like it. So that's your advice. So you're going to make a difference, and even the little things count. If you're only in it for the money, well, guess what? You might make some money, but you'll make more if you're in it with passion in the long term. But if you do that, and if you get up off your couch and you actually take some action, and if you listen to everything that was just said here about sort of like looking at the potential and being early, there's amazing opportunities out there. Max touched on nodes. We're going to be talking a lot more in the future here, in the near future, about node sales and that entire opportunity and the ways that you can manage them, which is actually way simpler than most of what you just heard today about like climbing up roofs, like dodging police during COVID and running cables and all of these things. So there's a lot of opportunities still out there. Wow, this was like a masterclass in becoming a miner, right? So I think this is going to be pretty exciting for anyone who's ready to take the plunge. And if you are ready to take that plunge, you know where to go. Where do they go? Where should they go? I think there's a website.
DePINHub.io.
And don't forget, we have an academy there now. We haven't fully launched or announced it, but it is there. And there is already a course there, which is the entire DePIN Revolution event, 37 different presentations. So you can already start. And we have a whole bunch more course material coming out soon. So you can learn, you can do your research, you can study token prices, you can buy miners, you can bundle them together and get them all shipped at once. And very soon, we'll be launching some stuff to help you run those nodes. So there's a lot of stuff going on DePINHub.io. Max, Daniel, any closing thoughts for our audience before we sign off of Daniel's podcast that Michael's just taking over?
Yeah, I mean, what I tell people, like, make sure to go to DePINHub.io and subscribe to the newsletter, make an account, attach your wallets in there, attach your account to Discord, because everything that we build with Helium, we're building now for the whole DePIN ecosystem, but 10 times bigger and 10 times more exciting. Because we're not just talking to one project, we're talking about hundreds of projects, hundreds of opportunities. And the cool thing is that DePIN is too early, right? There's like so many projects that we talk every day. They're still building in stealth mode. They're just like the founders, just the ideas. And what people say, like, okay, we're, let's say, starting a bull market. But I believe personally that DePIN is only going to take out maybe in the next bull run. So there's a lot of opportunity still to be early. As long as you move your fat ass and start building with us, right? There's so many cool things to do in this world. So many cool like projects to build. I just got too excited about talking about this. So I'm sorry about that.
There's some alpha. It's the next bull run is coming, but you have to move your ass to cash in on it.
Yeah, exactly. So if you wait until you see people making money, it's late, right? You're like, okay, there's like so many node opportunities that we're gonna be giving to our community. We spend a lot of time talking to projects, understanding the tokenomics, and trying to bring the best opportunity to our community. But you need to move, right? You can't just like wait, because what's gonna happen is like, okay, they talked about this project 6 months ago. Now those people are making money. Now I'm gonna go in, so probably it's already too late.
Yeah, it's you and 50,000 other people thinking, now I'm gonna go in. So
everybody's buying Bitcoin now. It's 100K. It was true. Everybody, when it was 50, they were waiting to drop to 30. So yeah.
Exactly. Max, any last thoughts here?
Yeah, I would say like follow your interests, and that maybe crypto may not be crypto, but ultimately like even in crypto, there's a lot of overlap with non-crypto things, especially in DePIN. So you can get really involved in so many different levels. Just follow your interest and you'll eventually find like what is super, super interesting to you. And you'll get rewarded eventually. I'm sure of that.
Well, there you go. You will get rewarded eventually. So, guys, Max and Daniel said it here first, running nodes. So we're talking about nodes, maybe the 2025, so because we're almost at 2025 version of the 2020 kind of helium mining gold rush that we just talked about today. So stay tuned to our newsletter, the DePIN Hub website, and this podcast, because we're going to be offering a lot of exciting stuff about how you can take part in these node sales. And in these node sales, it really honestly does pay to be early. They're often in a tiered system. And if you get in early, you get a better price, which means your payback period is shorter. We're going to be giving discounts away on different sales, and those discounts can also be applied to how you manage those nodes so that you don't have to deal with any of the stuff that they just talked about, any of those headaches. We're actually going to do that for you. Yeah, so I don't know how you finish your podcast. I like to say DePIN revolutionary, stay decentralized. What do you say?
I say go to deepinhub.io, subscribe to the newsletter, attach your Discord account, add your wallets. There's a lot of cool things coming up to the platform right now. And yeah, just be vigilant with all the updates that we do on X. And if you're on YouTube, make sure to put it,
hit that bell, ring the bell, ring the bell.
If you're on YouTube, hit that bell, because you know a lot of cool things are coming for you and you don't want to be waiting around. So be the first one.
Get up off your ass on the couch. Daniel said it.
Let's go.
You're going to make money. Max said it too, but not financial advice.
Not financial advice. Everything here is...
You're going to be rewarded in things.
We only do this for fun. Yes. Arigatou gozaimasu.
ありがとうございます。谢谢。
谢谢。